The situation in the Middle East cannot be understood in isolation from its deep and layered history. What appears today as sudden instability is actually the surface of much older structures that have been forming for centuries. This region has long been a crossroads of civilizations, trade routes, religions, and empires. Because of this, it has always carried a unique level of strategic importance, and wherever importance exists, competition naturally follows. Over time, different powers, both local and international, have pursued influence in this region for political, economic, and security reasons. Each era added another layer of complexity, and none of those layers fully disappeared. Instead, they overlapped. When history is not fully resolved, it does not vanish. It becomes part of the present in invisible ways. That is why many of today's conflicts are not isolated events, but echoes of earlier disputes, decisions, and divisions. Another important factor is geography. The Middle East sits at a critical junction between continents, making it not only culturally diverse, but also strategically vital for global trade and energy routes. This importance has often made it a center of competing interests, where multiple parties seek influence at the same time. And when too many interests collide in one place, tension becomes a recurring pattern rather than a temporary phase. What people often overlook is that history in such regions is not just written in books. It is carried in memory, identity, and political behavior. Generations inherit not only land, but also perspectives shaped by past experiences. These inherited perspectives influence present decisions, sometimes reinforcing old divisions instead of healing them. So when we observe the region today, we are not seeing a single moment of conflict. We are seeing the accumulation of long historical processes, unfinished resolutions, and overlapping ambitions that continue to shape reality in the present day. Human behavior is the most powerful force shaping global events, yet it is also the least understood. Most people assume that conflicts between nations are purely political or strategic, but at the core, every decision is made by individuals influenced by emotion, perception, fear, ambition, and belief systems. These human elements often carry more weight than logic alone. When trust breaks down between groups, it does not disappear instantly. It slowly transforms into suspicion, and suspicion eventually becomes hostility if it is not addressed. Once this cycle begins, it can repeat itself across generations. People begin to inherit not only land and identity, but also emotional narratives about others. These narratives influence how entire societies interpret actions, even neutral ones, often turning them into threats or justifications. Another important aspect of human behavior is the tendency to protect interests. Whether it is security, resources, or influence, groups naturally act in ways they believe will preserve their survival or advantage. When multiple groups operate with this mindset in the same space, competition becomes inevitable. Without strong systems of dialogue, understanding, and compromise, that competition can escalate into long-term tension. Fear also plays a central role. When people feel uncertain about the future, they often make decisions based on protection rather than cooperation. Fear narrows thinking. It reduces openness, and when fear is shared collectively, it can shape entire national policies and public opinions. Yet, human behavior is not fixed. It is shaped by education, leadership, environment, and experience. The same human nature that creates conflict also has the ability to create peace when guided by clarity and responsibility. This is why understanding human behavior is not about blame, but about awareness. Because once you understand the patterns behind actions, you begin to see that history is not just a series of events. It is a reflection of human choices repeated over time. Amid all the complexity and conflict that often dominates global headlines, there is another reality that is frequently overlooked: the resilience of ordinary people. In regions facing long-term instability, life does not completely stop. Instead, it adapts. People continue to wake up each day, go to work, attend school, care for their families, and try to create meaning within conditions they did not choose. This quiet persistence is one of the most powerful expressions of human strength. Resilience is not always loud or visible. It is not always recorded in reports or shown in news coverage. It exists in the small, consistent actions of individuals who refuse to surrender their sense of purpose. A student studying for a future that feels uncertain. A parent working tirelessly to provide stability for their children. A community finding ways to support one another despite limitations. These actions may seem simple, but together they represent an extraordinary form of endurance. Another important truth is that adversity often reveals creativity. When systems are strained, people learn to innovate with what they have. They develop new ways of solving problems, building connections, and sustaining life. Over time, this creates a form of strength that is not dependent on ideal conditions, but on adaptability. It is also essential to recognize that hope does not disappear easily. Even in environments where uncertainty is constant, people continue to plan, dream, and strive for better outcomes. This ability to maintain hope in difficult circumstances reflects something deeply human, the refusal to be defined only by struggle. So, while the world may focus on conflict and disruption, there is always another layer beneath it: quiet resilience, steady endurance, and an unbroken will to continue moving forward. This is the side of humanity that often goes unseen, but it is just as real and just as powerful as the challenges themselves. In the middle of global uncertainty, the most important shift a person can make is not external, it is internal. You cannot control the direction of the world, the decisions of nations, or the complexity of history, but you can control the quality of your thinking, your discipline, and your emotional response. This is where true stability begins. Most people feel overwhelmed not because the world is too complex, but because their mind has not been trained to process complexity with clarity. When the mind is undisciplined, it reacts to every piece of information with anxiety or confusion. But when the mind is structured, it begins to filter what matters and what does not. This ability to focus is what separates those who remain grounded from those who become mentally exhausted by external noise. Emotional discipline is another essential layer of inner strength. The world will always present situations that trigger fear, anger, or uncertainty. However, reacting immediately to emotion often leads to poor decisions. Strength is built in the space between stimulus and response, the ability to pause, reflect, and choose a thoughtful action instead of an impulsive reaction. Clarity of purpose also plays a vital role. When a person knows what they are building in their own life, external chaos loses its power over them. Direction creates stability. Without direction, every event feels overwhelming. With direction, challenges become manageable steps in a larger journey. Ultimately, inner strength is not about ignoring reality, but about engaging with it from a place of control rather than chaos. It is the ability to remain steady when circumstances are unstable, focused when attention is scattered, and committed when outcomes are uncertain. This internal foundation is what allows individuals not only to survive in a complex world, but to grow and lead within it. When you step back and observe everything together, a clear picture begins to form. The world is not shaped by a single event, a single region, or a single moment in time. It is shaped by layers of history, patterns of human behavior, cycles of fear and ambition, and the silent resilience of people who continue to move forward despite uncertainty. What appears as chaos is often the result of long processes that were never fully resolved. And what appears as weakness in one moment often hides an extraordinary strength beneath it. At the same time, the most important battles are not only happening between nations or systems, but within the human mind itself. Because external reality will always carry complexity. That will not change. But what can change is how we interpret it, how we respond to it, and how we grow from it. The individuals who rise above confusion are not the ones who avoid reality, but the ones who develop clarity within it. So the final truth is simple. You cannot control every force in the world, but you can control your inner world. And when your inner world becomes strong, disciplined, and focused, you are no longer easily shaken by the outer world. That is where real strength begins, not in controlling everything around you, but in mastering yourself within it.